is here for you.
Hi, my dear Astro family. So today we are going to be looking at the Jupiter and Neptune cycle because they are about to be coming up for a square, which is happening on the 18th of June. And this is a very interesting chart. It has got a quincunx to Mars. It has got a sextile to Pluto retrograde. Neptune actually is in exact conjunction to the moon as well. So I'm going to try to break this down. The first part of the video is going to be pretty much about general themes. And then in the second part, I'm going to try to give you some keywords connected to your own natal chart. So, but before we do that, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. I'm going to be having a very super cool webinar coming up. And that is going to be about Pluto and Venus aspect in your natal chart as well as by transits. Now, this is going to be a very thorough class. I'm going to be talking about how you can make money out of this aspect, even if it's challenging, the psychological dynamics, how it appears in relationship, how it appears within the self, what type of games we play, how it might play out in the medical department of yours. So this is going to be quite a complex breakdown. Can you imagine? We're going to be talking about Venus and Pluto aspects minimum for 2 hours. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer webinar. So if you are interested in that, then check it out. It's available on my website, and I hope to see you there. Now, let's get started with this Jupiter and Neptune square. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, this is happening on the 18th of June. And Neptune will be on 2 degrees of Aries and Jupiter is on 2 degrees of Cancer. So they are making a square. Now, what's important to remember to start with? That we are talking about two planets that has got a cycle. And the cycle started in 2022, April 12th. It got planted, something got planted there. Now, by the way, the conjunction between them two happened, as I said, a good 3 years ago, and it happened on 23 degree of Pisces. So what I'm going to try to do in this video is that I'm going to be giving you like combinations between that Pisces cusp of your chart as well as the Cancer and the Aries part of your chart, because that's how it's going to make sense. Now let's have a look at what Jupiter and Neptune cycle is about to start with, because that might be super important. First of all, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, optimism, growth, beliefs, philosophy. It represents pretty much our drive for growth, exploration, freedom. It has got an optimistic outlook. Also, it's associated with higher learning, philosophy, religion, and justice as well. Basically, Jupiter expands anything that it touches. Now it comes together with Neptune, and Neptune represents or symbolizes our connection to the divine. It's the planet of imagination, intuition, compassion. It represents our dreams, ideas, but it's also connected to mysticism as well. Negatively speaking, it represents confusion, delusions, escapism, and then how we want to dissolve our own boundaries. So Jupiter and Neptune meet approximately every 13 years for a conjunction, but they have got a larger cycle as well, which is about 166 years. So the conjunction, but anyway, let me not talk about the bigger cycle. So they meet every 13 years. Basically, every 166 years, they are going to be meeting in a new zodiacal sign. So the next conjunction, of course, is going to be taking place. Um, in the sign of Aries. But we are going to be talking about that. Or we are not going to be talking about the 166-year cycle. So, what are the themes with this cycle? We've got the spiritual and idealistic expansion of it. So, this is telling us that it's time to broaden our spiritual beliefs, to pursue higher ideas, and to make deeper connections to something beyond the material world. So, therefore, I would call the Jupiter-Neptune cycles as humanitarian impulses. It's kind of like changing our belief systems around interconnectedness. This is the point in our chart where we've got a vision. So this is about visionary thinking, creativity. That's why it rules the artists, for example. So basically, what happens is that we had a conjunction in the sign of Neptune. We were meant to be having a vision in that particular part of your chart. So, for example, if you had it in the first house, like myself, I had to have a vision how I want to be seen, how I want my body to look like, and all those type of stuff. But also, this cycle talks to you about the collective evolution of consciousness. So I feel like that this is kind of like a collective shift in how like human relationships are unfolding, how social structures are actually happening within the world, because Jupiter is a social planet, so it represents the society, and how the religious or spiritual belief systems are affecting us. Yes, this is the point of empathy and compassion on a societal level as well. Now, also, this is the point of delusion and escapism as well. That would be the shadow side of it, because often optimism comes with an unrealistic approach. We can call it as the spiritual bypassing point in our chart. And often we do a lot of escapism through substances or excessive fantasies and so forth. What does it do? It blurs our boundaries between reality and illusion. And also, it's about the quest for meaning in life. So it's a purpose point. It's our deepest belief point in our chart. And also, often we see that with Neptune and Jupiter, we have got social and political movements. Historically, these cycles have coincided with significant developments in human rights, social justice movements, and even certain type of conflicts because the ideas and the beliefs are somehow amplified, and then we feel like that we have to protect those. Now, whenever you are looking at a cycle, then we have got key components there. So obviously the cycle starts with the conjunction, which is kind of like a 0 degree aspect. And that's the new beginning there. Then we've got the square aspect, which is a 90 degree. And that is a challenge there. There is a tension there where the dreams and the reality are tested. And probably it's a time when we are meant to be discerning between what's true and what's false. And also, this is a time when we need to stop making unrealistic promises or becoming kind of like a prey due to our illusions. So it's a testing time. And then we've got the opposition, which is 180 degree. And that's when usually when we get pulled into two different directions. So we've got, of course, the spiritual ideas, and then we've got the practical realities. So we've got the Jupiter Neptune square happening right now. So as I said, it's about waking up, being able to make distinguish like this. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, making differences between what is real and what is false, what my dreams are, and what the reality tells you. Now, it's really interesting, of course, with Jupiter and Neptune being in square, Saturn is part of this consideration as well. So the reality topic is surely super important here. Now, on a global level, as I mentioned earlier, we can look at it two ways. Of course, the positive global manifestation and the challenging global manifestation part of it. The positive would be that we are humanitarian. We are collectively increasing compassion towards others. We realize that we are interconnected. So often it is humanitarian aid, social justice matters, as I mentioned earlier, or this is a spiritual awakening point. Like collectively, we are searching for meaning to life. And also, this is a kind of like new healing modalities, new philosophies, new religious movements, which may gain more attention. And also, surely this is about artistic or cultural kind of like renaissance that happens with it. So, art, music, film, literature industries. And mentioned earlier, of course, the social reforms, and even it could indicate technological breakthroughs as well. While Uranus is typically associated with technology, but the Jupiter-Neptune influence can contribute to innovations that have a widespread transformative impact on the society. It's kind of like a popularity point. That's why it is also about innovation. And it's kind of like, celebrities. So, like following the celebrities, what they are doing, and so on. So, it's a little bit of an innovative point as well. The challenging part is delusion, deception, because the lines are blurred between reality and illusions, and that becomes a pitfall there. Or religious fanaticism, that could come with that too. And obviously, following the herd without kind of like looking at the consequences and looking at the individual needs. And that would be Saturn in the picture. Or it could talk to us about economic bubbles as well. I mean, Jupiter, expands the Neptune's association with illusions. I mean, Jupiter inflates things. So Neptune represents oils and inflations and so forth. So it's kind of like can create, of course, an economic bubble. And also it affects the speculative markets as well quite significantly. And then the boundaries. So that is talking to us about the borders between two countries. So I mean, we would be able to look at some of the examples when it came to conjunction. I mean, we had a conjunction in 1919. The conjunction happened in the sign of Leo. That was the end of the First World War, and there was this formation of the League of Nations. And then we had the 1945 conjunction in the sign of Libra. Again, it coincided with the end of the Second World War. And obviously, that was pretty much the establishment of the United Nations. And then we had 1958 when the conjunction happened in the sign of Scorpio. Well, that's when we saw the Cuban Revolution and other social and political movements challenging existing power structures. And then we had the recent one. I mean, the one before the recent one was 2009, and the conjunction took place in the sign of Aquarius, which actually came unfortunately with global financial crisis situations. And that so also the inauguration of Barack Obama, the first African American US president. And of course, it was the Bitcoin as well that happened there. And then now we had the conjunction in the sign of Pisces, 2022, April 12th. And what's interesting about that, that both Neptune and Jupiter rule the sign of Pisces. So it surely amplifies themes around humanitarian crises like refugee matters. Just think about the war in Ukraine, a focus on collective healing, a questioning of existing social structures, and the spiritualism and artistic renewals, of course, and something to do with the pharmaceutical companies, just to mention a few keywords there. Now, it's time to kind of like break this down a little bit. So obviously now we had the cycle that started in 2022. Now we are getting to the square element. And obviously Jupiter is in Cancer, Neptune is in the sign of Aries. So when Jupiter is in Cancer, obviously there are topics related to home, family, emotional security, even the intuition and the healing comes here. So we can kind of like say that this is growth in domestic life. So somehow there are opportunities here to improve our emotional well-being, to improve our home life, our family connections, kind of like trying to create a more nurturing environment. And maybe it's also about trusting our gut feelings or connect with others more on an emotional level. So it really looks like with Jupiter in Cancer, we are going to be focusing quite a lot on security as well as belonging. And of course, Jupiter is the planet of abundance. So this would represent somehow an emotional as well as material abundance. So look at where the Cancer cusp is in your chart because that's where it can get enhanced. Now we've got Neptune in the sign of Aries, and Neptune, it blends that idealistic energy with Jupiter right now. But this Neptune becomes a little bit more direct, a little bit more assertive. So it's kind of like an idealistic action or fighting for an idealistic cause. So, on one hand, it represents a strong need to fight for a spiritual ideal or a compassionate cause. It's about the disillusion of the ego or the self identity, and it's about the creation of personal boundaries, of course, with that Saturn. And what does it mean to be individual? So it's kind of like the spiritual pioneer. So most likely this will bring new ways of approaching spirituality, the healing, all those fields that I mentioned with Neptune. So it's a self-discovery element. Negatively speaking, of course, it says that I'm completely confused and bummed about self-assertion, difficulty to express who I am, and of course, vulnerability to self deception in personal initiatives could be a topic here also. Now, of course, Saturn conjunct Neptune to Aries. And on one hand, this is a challenge. I mean, the conjunction goes down next year between them two, but they are in the same sign, being pretty close. The conjunction is going to be happening on 0 degree, and it marks a new cycle. So we need structure for dreams and ideas. Otherwise, things lead to disillusionment. Saturn tries to give form and reality to Neptune's ideas. So either, excuse me, either we need a concrete structure for that spiritual movement to those humanitarian causes. Saturn wants us to sober up a little bit. So it's about sobering up that deal, dissolve these illusions that we have created. Often it is about the dissolutions of all structures and realities. What was real, let's say 2009, it's not real anymore. That's why we need that Jupiterian type of things, which says go with the flow. And of course, it really comes to the leadership element as well. I mean, on one hand, if we think that the leader is this person, there is something going on behind the scenes. Of course, Saturn also wants us to confront hidden fears or illusions as well. And also, this might be inviting us to sacrifice for a greater purpose. Now, Jupiter in Cancer, Neptune in Neptune and Saturn are in the sign of Aries. A square is a tension, it's a challenge. It is growth, but through conflicts. So we've got the conflict between expansion and reality and the illusions. So because we are so focused on that emotional security to be nurtured, to grow, but it clashes somehow with with our identity and the fear of being who we want to be. We have got these ideas of how I want to assert myself, but that Saturn says, make sure that you are not misguided when it comes to your optimism. Of course, Jupiter's optimism is going to be challenged by Neptune's illusions and Saturn's harsh reality. It's kind of like there is a risk here, or having your faith misplaced into something or into someone. And that's why there is the need for discerning and to ground our actions. This square reminds us or even demands us to find a way to reconcile these opposing energies. And then it leads to a genuine opportunity for growth. It's like, where do we go globally? Where do we go on a personal level? It feels like we're going to have to be able to answer these questions. So this is a brief and general interpretation of that. I'm trying to give you as general as possible, that so that we can put it into your own natal chart. But when you look at the chart, what you see is that Neptune has got a conjunction to the moon quite tightly. So the moon represents the people. So the moon represents general public, the mood of the public. Also, it's about like popular sentiment. It's the collective mood. It's about emotional responses of the people. And with that moon and Neptune conjunction, it's kind of like the people and Neptune, which is the dreams and ideals, coming together. So it makes people super sensitive. It's kind of like very emotional. Positively speaking, this would talk to us about that we feel really compassionate and empathetic towards others. So people can be super sensitive to suffering, and obviously that leads to certain type of humanitarian actions, charitable movements, to help, like to have the desire to help those in need. It's kind of like spiritually yearning something. I want to have different experiences. I want to follow the herd. I want to be part of a collective vision. And it can give a lot of artistic inspiration to people as well. It's a sense of interconnectedness. But how does that happen in the sign of Aries? Often people come together to fight for a cause, right? Because I feel like that if we get together and then if we stand up together, then we are going to be able to kind of like conquer this suffering. The challenging side with Moon and Neptune is that there is a disorientation going on here. So somehow the public can be swayed, unclear, deluded, and it's very difficult to figure out what's real, what is kind of like the fiction here. So something could be going down here, which is super confusing. And I'm scratching my head and I don't know which way to go. And this could lead to escapism. Like, because Saturn is there and then it says the reality is super harsh. Often it's overwhelming. So therefore, I'm gonna run away from it, and I might do that through entertainment, substances, or you just feel helpless. I'm kind of like vulnerable to certain type of propagandas. We are kind of like tired of fighting against misleading narratives, like fake news, or these public figures who promise unrealistic ideas. And then this aspect really talks to me about having to create certain type of boundaries. But it's very difficult to discern the truth here. Or Neptune and Moon, it's the collective grief. I mean, maybe ideas and our hopes are shattered somehow, and therefore it is leading to sadness or despair or grief and sorrow. So this could indicate that a very important public figure who might pass away, and it just leaves the entire world in a way shocked, as well as super sad, or whatever kind of like fights, war, and all these type of things go down. I'm super sad about it because let's say people are losing their lives. So the collective grief can be coming with this. So how can we connect this to the Jupiter cycle? The moon is super important here because it rules the moon. because Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer. So it really feels like that the public becomes super emotional. It looks like that the public is somehow reflecting on idealistic, spiritual, and global events. Now, there's a lot more to mention about this, so stick with me. When we look at Vesta, Vesta has got a quincunx to this. So we've got the Moon and Neptune conjunction, and Vesta is in the sign of Scorpio. So we've got a quincunx happening there. So Moon, as we said, represents the people. Neptune represents our vision. Vesta in Scorpio, which is somehow representing focus. And by the way, we've got a sextile to Pluto as well. So let's break that down. So as discussed with Moon Neptune conjunction, it's high sensitivity, it's emotional period of time. It's about idealism, compassion, spiritual yearning. A quincunx to Vesta. What is quincunx to start with? I made a webinar, quite a couple of webinars actually on quincunxes. So if you're interested about that, check it out because I give a lot of information about what a quincunx means in your chart. But it's something awkward there. It's a joke. It's something that is uncomfortable. And it represents something that needs adjustment, or we have to be more conscious, or we have to put conscious effort to integrate those two energies because they don't easily connect. And Vesta is connected to sacred devotion, focus, commitment, the purity of purpose. It represents our inner flame. Now, Vesta in Scorpio is, I mean, when it's dedicated, it's super dedicated. This is intense, but often the motivation is hidden. I mean, often Scorpio focuses on power, control, psychological truth, resources, money, sexuality. So the potential conflict with this, that the public has got the desire, let's say for spiritual unity or escapism, but it comes together, or it's being at odds with the need for intense, perhaps even painful purification process. It feels like that something is about to start, but it comes with a lot of sacrifice, and I'm not too sure if I'm ready to adapt to it. With Queen Cons, it's always usually uncomfortable. It comes with sacrifices. So it looks like that I have to sacrifice who I am, and I'm not happy about it. Or we are super motivated to figure out these hidden agendas. Like we've got this global vision, or you've got your own vision, and that needs to be somehow, or we are super focused on it, but we realize that it cannot be done without making sacrifices, without dedication. Imagine this combination as an energy leaking. It's kind of like the energy is leaking out, the effort is being misdirected. So it feels like that we are unable to completely focus because of external issues that are causing anger. So I'm really trying to focus on finances. I'm really trying to figure out the meaning to life. But there are these external visions that are impacting the individual. The good thing is that Moon and Neptune sextiles Pluto, but I'm not too excited about that aspect because Neptune and Pluto, the last 100 years, they have been pretty close to each other. So I don't think it's that super, important aspect here. But this is about the transformation of the ideas. It's about revolutionary changes within the world. It's about the uncovering truth on a collective level. Um, so I would say that this Pluto might not be the most important. However, it has got a quincunx also to Mars, the newly ingressed Mars in the sign of Virgo. So we've got this collective emotional state and our spiritual drives that is getting together. And what's important here is that Saturn-Neptune moon conjunction is ruled by Mars and it's making a quincunx. So somehow we are driven. I mean, Mars represents action, drive, assertiveness, courage, anger, and physical energy. So, Mars on 0 degree of Virgo, it is all about that I am trying to express my energy, my anger in a practical, analytical way. I'm trying to analyze what frustrates me. I'm trying to be in service to others, but I'm helping you out, and then it really makes me frustrated that I'm trying to help, and then you don't like reciprocate it or you don't take it well. It's about efficiency, it's about problem solving with Mars in Virgo. We've got a problem here that needs to be solved. Maybe it's a health crisis situations, maybe this is a work and employment related matters, but also Virgo represents self-improvement as well. Connected with Aries, we have to be improving on a collective level. This is a 0 degree Mars, by the way. So it is called as a critical degree. It's a pure, unfiltered kind of like energy of Virgo. So there is a lot of focus on precision, analysis, service industries, military as well. It looks like there is a military situation going on here, military preparing. I have been a firm believer that compulsory military is coming back. That's what I really feel like it. But somehow there is this misdirected action and effort. Obviously, we are driven by idealistic or emotional impulses, but without sufficient planning or analysis or attention to detail. And that could lead to a certain type of a chaos. Something might get launched without kind of like looking at the consequences of it or kind of like putting the whole picture together. And health and service related issues. I mean, Virgo is associated with health and service. The quincunx actually often highlights medical matters as well. But these quincunx highlight challenges in practical actions related to the collective health issues or military matters. So we might be seeing doctors, nurses ending up on the streets or having to draw military out to the streets because for some reason, maybe demonstrations, Aries, anger, frustration, and so forth. And then people are kind of like becoming unstoppable here. It could lead to a lot of anxiety and restlessness as well. Quincunx represents anxiety as well as Virgo represents anxiety as well. So it really feels like that this is going to be, unfortunately, also somehow happening. What you need to do on a personal level, you need to be practical, you need to be planning things out. You need to be committing and you need to be sometimes facing uncomfortable truth. And then if you do that and you make certain type of system change in your life, like daily routines work and so forth, I think that Pluto sextile does work because it's going to give you a tremendous amount of opportunity. So this is a brief discussion about how I see this upcoming very exciting configuration, to be frank. So now let's break this down for the 12 signs. So I am just about to switch off the camera and then let's have a look at Aries rising signs. I can share the screen and then you will be able to see. Okay, Aries rising sign. The initial conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune took place in your first house, in your 12th house. So we had a vision there. And the vision was about being able to connect to your dreams, being able to uncover something unconscious, or even investing into spirituality, for example. You might have envisioned something around that time. You wanted to go through a spiritual purification, you wanted to go through a healing process, or you wanted to dissolve the ego boundaries so that you can merge with something greater in life. The challenges with that point was that we started running away. We had self-defeating behaviors or self-sabotage, or maybe you had difficulties of discerning reality from illusions. And you could have felt overwhelmed by the suffering of the world, or kind of like that life feels like a little bit challenging, difficult, and so forth. Now, the current cycle, you can see that you've got a stellium in your first house, squared by Jupiter in your fourth, Vesta is in your eighth, and Mars is in the sixth house. So somehow this Saturn and Jupiter square is very much about um, hitting your identity, your image, how you initiate things. And this is telling you that it's time to get going towards that idea that you have created. But you seem to be emotionally responding a little bit. You might be a little bit fragile right now. Somehow you feel like that you are about to start something, but it gets challenged by your need for emotional security or by your family as well. Maybe you are struggling to balance your ambition with your domestic needs. And then, of course, Mars has got this quincunx to it. So you have got action, and you are dedicated with Vesta in the eighth house. But it feels like that the actions and the dedication, but like what I'm dedicated to, need certain type of adjustments, and it brings awkward situations. So you can feel awkward, for example, at work, or maybe you have started, for example, like you have dreamed how your perfect body looks like, but maybe you are at a stall right now, and then we're gonna have to be able to kind of like make adjustments around it. What Pluto suggests is, because it makes sextile, what Pluto suggests is that your personal transformation comes through innovation, upgrading yourself, like innovating your self expression, putting yourself out there, going on a unique journey, and then maybe embracing certain type of a new goals, or you're going to have to conquer your fears of being visible. Because obviously the initial cycle started for you in the 12th house, which is the house of invisibility. Like we've got the dream to start something new there. We have envisioned something, but maybe we haven't conquered our fears just yet. So this complex combination tells you that it's time to get outside of your comfort zone and move forward. It also feels like that maybe you are about to be starting a new job, but you have got all these uh, family responsibilities that you feel like you need to attend, and maybe you have to be still working a little bit more on your bravery. Okay, let's move on to Taurus rising sign. So, dear Taurus, the initial conjunction took place in your 11th house. So, what is the vision there? I mean, the 11th house governs friendship, groups, hopes, and dreams. So, the vision could have been connected to group activities, or wanting to seek connections with like-minded individuals, maybe who share your humanitarian or spiritual ideas. Maybe you have envisioned being part of the collective, or being part of a group of people that kind of like sisters and brothers to you. Or maybe you had a hope, you had a dream. And, the dream could have been anything really. But also, it could have indicated that you were confused what the goals should be. You feel like, or you felt like that I needed to go forward. Maybe you got decepted by friends. Maybe you didn't know what group to belong to. Maybe you had unrealistic expectations towards certain type of groups, salary, and friends. And now it's time to make certain type of adjustments, because we've got the Saturn Neptune and Jupiter square happening. And the Saturn Neptune moon actually hits you subconsciously. So this is about loneliness. This is about privacy. This is about feeling the need to kind of like figure out your emotional world a little bit. This can actually make you quite intuitive, or you feel that courage to do self undoing. Why am I so sensitive? Why am I not being able to initiate, for example, my goals and so forth? It also, the challenging part with that your hidden self, Aries, is at odds with your beliefs about value and resources. You might struggle to materialize your dreams right now. So maybe you started a new goal in 2022, and then you feel like this is coming to kind of like where the change has to happen because let's say the money is not coming in anymore as much as it used to. Maybe adjustments need to be made how you communicate, for example, how you manage your resources, your intimacy. And in a way, do I want to be with the partner or not? Like, imagine that you got together with someone in 2022, but now it's somehow the communication is breaking down here. Maybe it feels like that sometimes it's good to be alone. Jupiter can be super optimistic, though, that at the end of the day, we might be able to talk it through. Or maybe you feel like that in order for me to kind of carry on the momentum, for example, of that business or goal or futuristic mindset that I started in 2022, now I have to withdraw myself a little bit. I'm going to have to study about it. I'm going to have to look at certain type of patterns, but somehow it brings up the topic of a relationship for you. So making a decision whether communication helps, for example, within this relationship, or I'm going to have to be able to move on. Why is that? I mean, look at Vesta and look at all these 12 house energies are connected to Mars, which is in your fifth house. So it's about the act of service within the love. Like, do I get enough or do I feel supported by my partner? But also, it's about working through your courage to be able to start potentially your own business. And the initial vision somehow connected to goals and money at the beginning of 2022. Okay, let's move on to Gemini rising sign. So first of all, the vision happened in your career house, in your 10th. And this was a vision, most likely, that I want to do something artistic. I want to do something humanitarian. I want to start potentially a new job. I maybe want to be public somehow. Maybe I want to take on a public role that involves healing, social justice, or even just somehow bringing beauty or spirituality to the world. Or simply, I want to be recognized for something. Also, negatively, it could have indicated that you were really confused about the career path that you need to be on. So you started searching. What shall I do? What my career inspirations are? What is my calling? Now, hopefully, you gain some type of clarities, but this Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter square is actually asking you now to reevaluate those. So, of course, now we've got this stellium happening in your 11th house, which is about your future aspirations. And it looks like that your future aspirations are meeting certain type of financial potentially challenges. So let's say I started a work in 2022 or I had these career goals and maybe let's say your videos are not receiving as many views as it used to. So, or you might have been very drawn to humanitarian causes or being part of a group and so forth, but maybe it feels restrictive now, and then it's not supporting my self-worth. So it could feel like that I've outgrown these groups. Also, the group affiliations might conflict with your personal values and even your financial security. Maybe you find it a little bit hard to reconcile their future vision with your own reality. And that's why we need the adjustments. Of course, Mars is in the fourth house, in the sign of Virgo. Of course, adjustments are needed in your daily routines when it's connected to home and family and emotional well being. And Vesta is in your sixth house in the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is finances on one hand, and the sixth house represents work. So it really looks like that you are experiencing certain type of work challenges at the moment. Maybe you have believed that this is going to be ideal, this is going to bring you money. Now it's time to make adjustments so actually the money can start flowing this year. Let's move on to Cancer rising sign. So, dear Cancer, your initial vision started in the ninth house, which is the house of higher learnings, philosophy, travel, worldviews. So, this could talk, I mean, this wanted you to expand your spiritual and philosophical worldview. It wanted you to find your own truth. It wanted you to have a deeper understanding of your own life and mysteries. Maybe you have envisioned traveling somewhere, maybe for spiritual purposes, or studying something mystical, or becoming a teacher, or a guide and a guru, and so forth. But the downfall of this, that our dreams could have been idealistic, unrealistic. Maybe we were confused about what to study. Maybe we attracted the wrong teacher. Maybe we didn't go to the right country, or we didn't choose the right spiritual gurus. That's the initial point for you. Now, we've got right now Saturn, Neptune, Moon in your 10th house, squaring Jupiter in your first. And it's somehow it is affecting your career, your image, your reputation. Obviously, the initial conjunction happened in the ninth house, which is the house of opportunities. Maybe you grabbed an opportunity around then, or maybe you didn't grab an opportunity. Now we can be regretting that. Obviously, you've got these public aspirations within the 10th house, but it is challenged somehow with your own personal growth and expansion. Maybe you are struggling to achieve public success. Maybe you just really focused on maintaining your own authentic self. And what it says is that we need to adjust the way we communicate with Mars in the third house. We need to be able to kind of collaborate or create more intimate connections with others, or I'm going to have to focus on my own business opportunities. I really feel like that it's time actually for you to collaborate, to kind of like look for, let's say, new work opportunities where there is an equality, or we are able to kind of like share intimacy, or like sharing the power. Someone who is going to be empowering me and someone who is going to kind of support me on this career path. And that comes from Pluto. All these could be leading to a self growth with Jupiter in the first. Let's move on to Leo rising sign. So, Leo, you had the initial conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune in your eighth house, which is the house of transformation, money, shared resources, intimacy, and psychological research. So I think you envisioned a spiritual transformation. And maybe you wanted to confront your deep fears, maybe exploring past lives, past life patterns. Maybe you wanted to be somehow like you have envisioned a certain type of financial well-being. Maybe through spirituality, maybe you have had, like, you wanted to create a stronger bond with someone, and therefore you went down on the road to explore yourself psychologically. Now, The challenges or the pitfalls of this conjunction was connected to being confused about money, how much, let's say you wanted to get a loan, for example, and then it looked really good around that time. But now you might feel a little bit deceived about it. Maybe you started a deep psychological cleanse around that time. Maybe you haven't finished yet. Maybe it was difficult to pinpoint actually where to start. But now we've got the square that is coming up for you between Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter. And somehow it is impacting your belief system. It is impacting what you study, where you travel, what your philosophy are. It's about spiritual exploration. It's about emotional investment, seeking new truth, new opportunities, new gurus. But somehow your belief, ninth house, is in clash with your personal values and self-worth. And because we've got Jupiter, which is obviously your belief, but Cancer is quite personal. Maybe you are struggling a little bit with faith, or maybe you feel insecure about the knowledge that you gained. And then it feels like that I wanna be uh, studying further. Like in the eighth house, you might have started certain type of spiritual studies. Now you feel like it wasn't enough. I need a new guru. I need to be expanding my horizon a little bit. Maybe I need to touch based on a different things. Maybe I need to be able to add something else to the palette so that I can create better financial situations. Where does that motivation comes from? It comes from Virgo, Mars in the second house. It does say that we need to be making adjustments the way we make money, or adjustments are needed in your material possessions and your sense of purpose. It really feels like that it's time to kind of like find new sources of talent that might take you even further. The downfall of Jupiter in your 12th that you can easily can get obsessed with something that you used to do, and now you're gonna have to step outside of your comfort zone. You're gonna have to open up to new channels with that ninth house. You're gonna have to explore different studies, different countries, and so on. And then the growth is gonna start coming your way. Virgo rising sign. So the initial conjunction between Neptune and Jupiter took place in your seventh house. So you had a vision about being in partnership. You had potentially an idealized vision that I'm going to find a deep spiritual connection or unconditional love. Maybe you have envisioned collaborations as well, or maybe you wanted a relationship which dissolves any type of traditional boundaries, focusing on soul connections. The challenge is that I could have been confused about the partnership topics as well. We could have been attracting partners who are deceptive or struggling in life, or people who are unable to kind of like create healthy boundaries in relationship. Remember, this is not just romantic relationship. So, where does this current square lead you? Of course, you can see the stellium in the eighth house, which is super important here, which is about intimacy, shared resources. To a certain extent, this is the house of new beginnings as well as the death element. So, on one hand, it tells you that you need to be able to be brave enough to be, for example, alone, to do things on your own. You don't need to be relying on others, or you're going to have to be looking at the psychological reasons why the person, for example, haven't come into your life yet. Something needs to be transformed here. But it comes at odds with your emotional security and personal growth because you might not get the support, for example, from friends. Maybe you are not putting yourself out there enough. Maybe you are hiding with all that eighth house elements. Maybe you are struggling to trust, or maybe you are feeling overwhelmed by certain type of like whatever is happening in the world, and that leaves you somehow scared. So therefore, Mars in your first house wants you to make adjustments around your worldviews. It wants you to start fresh. It wants you to kind of like even create a different type of like approach to life. It wants you to cut out anything to do with fears. Potentially, I mean, with Pluto, what helps you here is that changing your work environment or hanging out a little bit more with coworkers, for example, or transforming your body could be really helpful for you. It's all about feeling empowered. It's about changing the type of service that you give it to others, and that might be bringing you somehow a freedom. This Mars wants you to be free, but it looks like that you need to be able to conquer some of your fears here around connecting, around being on a public stage. I highly recommend listening to the Jupiter and Saturn square video, but I also break this down for the 12 signs so you can gain more insight about that. Let's move on to Libra rising sign. So the initial conjunction for you happened in the sixth house. So there is a vision here. And the vision is connected to work, service, healing. So you might have envisioned that in a few years' time, for example, you're gonna look better. Or you might have promised yourself that you're gonna do a lot more self-care, or you are going to be healing somehow. And maybe you have chosen some alternative or holistic methods to heal something. But now or maybe certain type of work situations, work relationships with others that you also wanted to kind of like heal. In a way, figuring out what type of work I want to be doing. Now, for you, now we have got a stellium in the seventh house. And somehow partnerships, relationships, enemies are somehow getting um, a little bit of a conflict with your career goals. So the scenarios that I can imagine is that you may struggle to balance your partnership with your professional ambitions. Maybe you feel like that you started, for example, a service industry related business, but there are competitions out there. Clients are not coming anymore. So it says that we need to make adjustments the way we communicate, for example, the way we care for the self. Somehow it feels like that money is a big topic for you. Maybe your expenditure grew, for example, in the business that you are in, and you have to be cutting corners, you have to be cutting numbers, or simply this could talk to you about that you have not feeling confident about your partnership. You feel like that these professional connections or relationships are not working anymore because there is no growth in it. So what am I going to do? Maybe there is no healthy boundaries between you and the potential partner. So it's time to make a change. I mean, this could talk to you about also that the partner, like you would like, for example, a business to grow. You've got the business idea, you have been working on behind the scenes on something, but you kind of run into lack of interest or lack of support by the partner. Let's move on to Scorpio rising sign. So, dear Scorpio, you had the original vision in the fifth house, and you have got a creative vision here. Maybe you had a vision connected to art, music, self-employment, something creative here. Or maybe you have envisioned that a romantic relationship based on spirituality or soulfulness are going to take the next step. Or maybe you have envisioned that you are going to become a parent, or just you wanted to foster your children's or your inner child's emotional growth. You wanted to do, maybe you promised that I'm going to be uh, like doing a little bit more fun. Now, it could indicate also that you have got creative blocks. Maybe you got into a confusing romantic relationship, or maybe you realize that your kids grew up and what am I going to do with my time right now? Now, how does that affect you? Because we've got all these six house energies, and then Jupiter is in your ninth house right now. So somehow you get hit with these daily routines and the health and the service industry. Um, and somehow your experiences, your daily work, are at odds with your beliefs. So, for example, imagine scenarios that I have wanted to go on a holiday with the fifth house. Like I wanted to kind of like relocate, or I went on holiday and I fell in love with someone. And then, but I'm struggling to find work, or the work that I'm doing is not providing growth anymore to me. Obviously, that sixth house really indicates dedication to the work or dedication to the body as well. But somehow it is not aligning with me anymore. So I'm struggling to find meaning in my work, or I feel restricted by my own routines. So we need to be making adjustments, and maybe we need to be making adjustments around our goals because Mars is in the 11th house, and maybe we need to start something new. What we are doing right now is clashing with our beliefs, with our plans somehow. We don't see the opportunity anymore, so it's time to start something completely fresh. And what could help you here quite significantly is if you are able to kind of dig a little bit deeper and then figure out what is actually making you happy. This is Pluto gives you the opportunity now, tries to empower you to create healthier routines, to be in service to others as well as to yourself. It really feels like that it's time to be a little bit more egotistical. Vesta says in the first house as well, focus on the self. What do I need? What do I want? Sagittarius rising sign. So the initial conjunction happened in your fourth house. So we had a vision of where to live, how I want the home to look like, how like reconnecting with the family, spending great time together with the family, or just going through this emotional purification. Maybe you wanted to create this sanctuary or dissolving old family patterns or reconnecting with your roots. Now, of course, it could have come with certain type of challenges as well, maybe confusion within the home, like boundaries within family relationships, feeling overwhelmed by, the living space, the country where I am. So there could have been the desire here to relocate. Now, how does that connect to the current cycle? Obviously, we've got all that fifth house energy for you in the fifth house, right? So somehow your creative expression is at odds with your psychological security or shared resources. Maybe you are struggling with vulnerability when it comes to your creations. Maybe it comes with a financial insecurity about the country where you live or where all these things are leading to. And then I want to feel safe. So I'm going to be, I don't know, taking my money out of the bank, putting it somewhere else, and so forth. But also, you could have started working from home, for example, fourth house, maybe on some certain type of creative fields, and then now we are meant to be somehow making adjustments on it. Maybe I'm going to do an exhibition. Maybe I'm going to be putting that out to others to see it. Visibility is going to be a super important keyword here because Mars is in your 10th house. So there needs to be a certain type of a adjustments, uh, how you like putting yourself out there, how you are trying to um, kind of like conquer your insecurities about, let's say, working from home. It also really feels like to me that, let's say, with the initial conjunction, you wanted to purchase a holiday home. And then maybe what the struggle is right now that maybe it's not bringing as much money as we would have liked to, because fifth house is money made from properties, and obviously the eighth house is the house of investments. So you could have made investments into a home. Mars is asking you to make adjustments about your visibility, like how you advertise it. Um, and of course, this is also somehow investing. Um, into emotional connections as well. Maybe it unfortunately talks to us about the loss of a parent with that Neptune and Jupiter a good, 3, 4 years ago. And then this might be telling me that I'm reevaluating my connections with others also. Or did I do the grieving? So good luck, Sagittarius rising sign. Let's move on to Capricorn. So, dear Capricorn, the original vision for you happened in your third house. So, there was a vision here that I might be like you might have envisioned sharing a message with others, inspiring others through art, music, or teaching, somehow kind of like, let's say, building a YouTube family or a Facebook family. And then I can be sharing something with my local community. This could have brought you a lot of miscommunication or difficulties of articulating your thoughts clearly. You could have been overwhelmed by too much information or kind of like noise as well. Now, how does that impact right now your current energies? Well, first of all, you have got that a stellium in the fourth house, which is about your emotional foundation. And somehow your domestic life is being challenged by your relationship and partnerships. So maybe you are struggling to balance your home life with a demanding partner. And it feels maybe it kind of like what could happen here is that you are deciding whether this relationship is growing or this relationship is somehow stagnant. What Mars tells you is that we need a lot of experiences. We need to get motivated to relocate. Maybe you would like to relocate, but the partner isn't. Or maybe the partner would like to relocate, but you are somehow getting stuck within the past. The way for you to move on is somehow to get outside of your comfort zone. Also, this could indicate that like you feel the motivation, for example, to learn a little bit more about emotional insecurities, about relationship dynamics, uh, so that that growth through the relationship could actually happen. It's about collaborating. It's about becoming somehow very visible, but also maintaining your privacy as well at the same time. I feel like you need to be a little bit more opportunist. Aquarius rising sign. So we've got the initial vision, which happened in your second house. And well, you have a vision of abundance. You have kind of like a spiritual wealth. You have a vision about experiences because Pisces is non-tangible, but the second house is tangible. So it's about finding a balance between experiences and how much money we've got. But I think you might have envisioned a new way of earning money that aligns with your spiritual and humanitarian ideas. The pitfall of this conjunction was about confusion about how to make money, spending habits, of course, or not necessarily getting stuck with these traditional ways of making money. There could have been self-worth issues there as well. And it really feels like right now, this is a topic that you're going to have to be able to work on. And the third house might want you to expand your horizon a little bit, to communicate, to learn, even to travel somewhere else. But your communication style is at odds with your daily routines, with your health. So, healthy communication, being able to like having to fix somehow our self-worth, making changes more. Maybe you are struggling to apply your ideas practically, or you feel overwhelmed by all the information that you've got. And it also looks like with Mars, some certain type of fears and blockages around finances needs to be removed. And last but not least, Pisces rising sign. So you had the initial vision in your first house. And it really feels like your vision was a spiritual awakening, a new sense of you. You might have felt this strong desire to change your body, or I'm gonna look artsy. It's really about self-image. The downfall or the challenges could have been that you were confused about who you are, or you didn't know how to achieve that, or maybe you were overwhelmed with your emotions, you were struggling with certain type of self-boundaries. Now, the current energies are actually kind of like asking you to reevaluate where you are with this. And of course, it's the second house. So, what you think about yourself, what you are holding on, how you tie your self-worth to money, how disciplined are you with money? Because somehow your values and finances are challenged by your romantic life, or it is challenged by potentially not being creative enough, or maybe you even struggle to invest in your creative projects, or you feel insecure about your own ability to provide, for example. There must be certain type of adjustments made, how you connect with others, how you go for those clients, and definitely adjustments have to be made around how you deal with finances and how much you want to be pleasing others, kind of like to see you ideal and so forth. You're gonna have to start yourself. You're gonna have to start seeing yourself like perfect if you think you are. If not, then make adjustments around it, but stop pleasing others. So good luck, everyone. This is the breakdown for all 12 signs, very briefly, though. Have a lovely week, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.
Every sign and every house, a journey starts, and we allow the universe so vast and true. Astro Viktor, it's here for you.